Experts report that hysteria about climate change is causing mental health problems among children. If they were being educated rather than indoctrinated, this wouldn't be happening. But disagreement from dogma isn't allowed. In 2009, a conference of eco-psychologists was even held at the University of West England to discuss the psychological problems of dissidents. If you disagree, you're mentally ill. But during the past 500 million years, the Earth's climate has mostly been warmer than it is today. Sea levels were much higher. The average temperature was 22 to 25 degrees Celsius. All land was either tropical or subtropical. And the three ice ages, the last of which we are still in now, eliminated most plants and animals where large ice sheets formed at the poles and in mountainous regions. Ice is the enemy of life. People should fear cooling more than warming. Humans are a tropical species. Naked humans without fire die of hypothermia if the temperature goes below about 21 degrees Celsius. Without the greenhouse effect of CO2, water vapor, and clouds, life on Earth would not thrive. About 50 million years ago, CO2 levels were several thousand parts per million, much higher than now, and life flourished. Most green plants evolved then, and plants grow better and have better flowers and fruit at higher CO2 levels. At our current rate of burning fossil fuels, getting to 1,000 parts per million would take about 300 years, and most plants would still prefer much higher levels, while human beings can safely tolerate up to about 5,000 parts per million. It's assumed that since CO2 levels have increased from about 280 ppm to 390 over the past 150 years or so, and the Earth has warmed by about 0.8 degrees Celsius during that time, the warming must be due to CO2. But correlation is not causation. About half of this warming occurred between 1910 to 1940, before the marked increase in CO2 emissions after World War II. Nobody knows what caused it. It is not even clear that human activity is the main factor in increased CO2 levels. Despite the predictions of climate activists, the worldwide reduction in CO2 emissions due to the coronavirus lockdown, a 40% decrease in China, for example, has had no impact on global CO2 levels. And there is very little correlation between the estimates of CO2 and the Earth's temperature over the past 550 million years anyway. There is no evidence for a significant increase of CO2 in the medieval warm period, nor for a significant decrease at the time of the subsequent Little Ice Age, when, by the way, millions of people died in famines because the crops died. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, simply removed the medieval warming period and Little Ice Age from its 2001 report. If the facts don't fit the theory, the facts have to go. The climate has always been changing, and as Leonard Bengtson reminds us, the warming we have had over the last 100 years is so small that if we didn't have meteorologists and climatologists to measure it, we wouldn't have noticed it at all. But what about extreme weather events? They have either not changed or have decreased alongside the recent rise in CO2 levels. And polar bears. There are more today than there were 30 years ago. The real root of Climate Crusaders' most damaging impact on mental health is the attitude epitomized by Greenpeace co-founder Paul Watson when he called humans the AIDS of the Earth. Agent Smith in The Matrix felt similarly. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of the planet. You are a plague, and we are the cure. Another man, worried about overpopulation and the scarcity of natural resources, who made forests sacred, banned experiments on animals, and felt he was the cure, was Hitler. In 1934, Ernst Lehmann, a leading biologist under the Nazi regime, wrote that striving toward connectedness with the totality of life, with nature itself, is the deepest meaning and the true essence of National Socialist thought. Children should pay less attention to greeny doomsdays. In his 1968 book, The Population Bomb, Paul Ehrlich wrote that in the 1970s and 1980s, hundreds of millions of people will starve to death in spite of any crash programs embarked upon now. The apocalyptic predictions of today will also turn out to be comically wrong. The real disease is the idea that humans are a disease. As Andrew Bolt warned, regimes that treat animals like humans end up treating humans like animals.